Now that Barack Obama's tenure as president is coming to an end, the great man is beginning to wax philosophical. For example, in Wired magazine, the president has written an article in which he says, quote, "Right now is the greatest time to be alive," unquote. And isn't that just so true? Right now is the greatest time to be alive because a person who isn't alive right now is dead. And being dead is worse than being alive because worms eat you and you can't get HBO. Some people who aren't alive right now have never even been born, and that's a terrible thing because you have to hang around waiting for your parents to have sex, which, let's face it, is disgusting even to contemplate. Then for 9 months, you're stuck inside your mother listening to her complain about how you're making her life miserable, and you can't even get outside to show her just how miserable you can really make her when given half a chance. Plus, at any moment, some psychopath from Planned Parenthood might start ripping you to pieces and selling your body parts, whereupon the whole great time to be alive thing becomes sort of a moot point. In another philosophical moment, President Obama told an innovation conference that he wants to rein in what he called the wild, wild west media. All this freedom of information has gotten out of hand, the president said. Any crank with a conspiracy theory can run around telling people that I used the IRS to target conservative groups or corrupted the Justice Department for political purposes or was born in Kenya. It's absurd. I was born in Hawaii. This madness has got to stop. It's not just the president who's grown reflective. The media are also taking time to discuss what a great, great leader Obama has been. In an article in the New York Times, a former newspaper, opinion editor Blithering Prevarication III writes, quote, "Some people look around and see Obamacare collapsing, and the United States growing weaker, and the world growing more dangerous, and an overregulated and overtaxed economy propped up by printed money and free credit in such a way that can only lead to a complete disaster. But pessimists like that are only looking at reality. They should read our paper instead. None of those things is happening here, and it's right here in these pages that Barack Obama is one of the greatest presidents who has ever lived." The Times objective journalism editor, Blithering Prevarication III, no relation, agrees with the opinion editor, who's a totally different person, just with a similar sounding name. Mr. Third says, quote, "This is a country steeped in racism, so it was a great day when we elected a black president to tell us how steeped in racism we are. Soon we'll have a woman president to tell us how steeped in sexism we are, and won't that be fun? President Obama is so right. This is a great time to be a liar." Or alive. Whatever. Unquote. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shaped, tipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
I never get tired of watching the naked feminist turn into a housewife with cupcakes. It should happen more often in real life. All right, tomorrow is mailbag day. Oh, my goodness. Pardon me. Tomorrow is mailbag day. Let's hear a woohoo. Come on. Woohoo. Yay. Bring back Lindsay. Where's Lindsay? Yeah. All right. So send in your questions right now if you're a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, you can only sit there kind of looking longingly at the screen, a wistful look in your face as the questions pile up in your mind until your entire life is just one long stream of confusion and irritation. But if you are a subscriber, you can not only watch the show and not get kicked off Facebook and YouTube after 15 minutes, you can send in questions. We will answer them all. Guaranteed our answers are 100% accurate and 99.5% guaranteed to change your life for the better. All right. So I've been working on this all day yesterday. I don't do a lot of imitations, a lot of impersonations. I can do a few voices, but not really impersonation. But here's my impersonation of the mainstream media covering the new evidence of corruption in the Clinton campaign. Thank you very much. I got it. I think I just got it exactly right. So Donald Trump is saying the election is rigged, and people on the right are going crazy about this for reasons I will explain. But first, let's listen to Donald Trump. Let's get it clear. He's saying this because the polls show him to be losing. I think he is now 1,100 points behind everywhere. Like Sean Hannity is reading tea leaves and saying, well, in the battleground states, he's very close. And you think, yeah, because they're battleground states. It's everywhere else he's losing. He's losing He's losing Utah. He's losing Utah, where they once saw a Democrat go flying by through Salt Lake City. All right, so he's losing. So now he's doing just what he did, remember, when he thought he was losing in the primaries. He started saying the election is rigged, and now he's saying it again. Here he is.
Hillary Clinton should have been prosecuted and gone to jail for what she did. Instead of being held accountable, Hillary is running for president in what looks like to many people a totally rigged election. The election is being rigged by corrupt media pushing false allegations and outright lies in an effort to elect Hillary Clinton president. But we are going to stop it. We are not going to back down. False stories, all made up. Lies, lies. No witnesses, no nothing. All big lies. It's a rigged system.
Okay, so the right is upset about this because they fear that it could end the Republican Party, basically. I mean, if he loses, especially if he loses in a close election, which right now doesn't look like it's going to happen, but even if he loses by a fair margin and he says this is all rigged, then he marches off with his supporters, leaving the GOP behind. And this is what Republicans are worried about. But there are also philosophical issues. Bret Stephens, who is a never-Trumper, he writes a brutal column this morning. I mean, a really brutal column comparing Donald Trump to Joseph McCarthy. I don't know what it is about Donald Trump. Like, people reach for these, really go out there for the comparisons. But listen to this opening of this Bret Stephens column. They meet in secret, men of immense wealth, a woman of limitless ambition. Their passports are American, but their loyalties are not. Through their control of international banks and the media, they manipulate public opinion and finance political deceit. Their aim is nothing less than the annihilation of America's political independence, and they will stop at nothing, including rigging a presidential election, to achieve it. Call it for what it is, quote, a conspiracy on a scale so immense as to dwarf any previous venture in the history of man, unquote. Astute readers will note the quotation of a speech delivered in the U.S. Senate in June 1951 by the then junior senator from Wisconsin, where in historically familiar territory, Joe McCarthy inveighed against communists in control of the State Department. For Charles Lindbergh, it was war agitators, notably those of the Jewish race. And now we have Donald Trump versus what Laura Ingraham calls the globalist cabal, the latest enemy from without within. In a speech Thursday in West Palm Beach, the GOP presidential nominee painted a picture of a global power structure centered around Hillary Clinton that aims to, quote, plot the destruction of U.S. sovereignty, unquote, while stepping on the necks of American workers with open borders and ruinous trade deals. There is nothing the political establishment will not do, Mr. Trump thundered. No lie they won't tell to hold their prestige and power at your expense, and that's what's been happening. So a really brutal takedown of Trump as a McCarthyist for calling the election rigged. And as I said, he's doing this because he's losing. This is what he always does. But, partly I think he's such a narcissist that the idea that he might be losing because he keeps stepping on his own foot. First he shoots himself in the foot, and then he steps on his foot, and then he puts his foot in his mouth with the bullet still in it, swallows the bullet and dies, and then he blames everybody else. But this is really bothering people on the right. And Jonah Goldberg, also a never-Trumper, he's arguing that Trump and Steve Bannon there's all this information that they are preparing to start their own TV network. And so what Goldberg says is that he's preparing the audience for this network. Here's Jonah Goldberg. Why is Trump constantly saying that if he loses, it will be because the election was rigged? Why is he wasting precious time attacking fellow Republicans, a move guaranteed to shrink his coalition even further? Because he wants the faithful to be permanently alienated from the rest of the political culture and utterly reliant on him. In fairness, it's also because he can't tolerate the idea that people will reasonably conclude that he's a loser and a choker, so he has to lay the groundwork for the claim the other side cheated. But that narcissistic insecurity just makes him all the more susceptible to Steve Bannon's manipulation. He was such a Bannon puppet yesterday, you could almost see Bannon's fingers moving in the back of Trump's mouth. Okay. So all of this, I think, these are not insane criticisms. I mean, I think these are things, Trump is a guy who doesn't have a lot of self-control, doesn't have a lot of discipline, has an ego that really is a problem. I mean, it really is he has a diseased ego. But there is this other question. Is he right? Is the election in some sense rigged? And here's George Will, and I put forward George Will because George Will is also a never-Trumper who left the Republican Party because he just thinks that Trump doesn't represent anything that he believes. George Will is a long, long time conservative. And he was asked by Bret Baier on Fox yesterday, is the election rigged? And here's his response.
Well, when Mr. Trump talks about it being rigged, he sweeps all his grievances into one big puddle. He talks about the media, he talked about the primaries, he talked about the polls, talked about the Republican National Committee. I think when most Americans hear that an election's rigged, they think of government action to rig the election. And there, Mr. Trump has a point if he would just make it more clearly. It is hard to think of an innocent reason why Democrats spend so much time, energy, and money, scarce resources all, resisting attempts to purge the voter rolls, that is, to remove people who are dead or otherwise have left the jurisdiction. It's hard to think of an innocent reason why they fight so tremendously against voter ID laws. They say, well, that burdens the exercise of a fundamental right. The Supreme Court has said that travel is a fundamental right. No one thinks that showing an ID at the airport burdens that fundamental right. We know, we don't surmise, we know that the 2010, 12, and 14 elections were rigged by the most intrusive and potentially punitive institution of the federal government, the IRS.
And, as Will goes on to point out, and he cites our friend Kim Strassel's book, The Intimidation Game, this is still going on. There's lots and lots of evidence that the IRS is still delaying giving nonprofit conservative groups their nonprofit status so they can get tax-free donations. And this is happening also. I mentioned yesterday that some of Dennis Prager's videos. I mean, come on, Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager is one of the most reasonable conservative voices out there. He tries to be He tries to be educational. He just tries to put forward first principles. He talks about the Ten Commandments and the relationship. I said before that they were restricting his videos on YouTube. They've now started banning his videos on YouTube. And it's just a little tiny, teensy-weensy bit suspicious that this is happening right now. Why is it that conservative voices get silenced? Why is Twitter banning Project Veritas? All these things are happening just as this election is taking place. And why is it that the left always wants silence? Why is it that we want more information out there because what we're saying makes sense, but the left just wants to shut the argument down. So they cheat. I mean, this is the thing. They cheat. That's what Will is saying, that they cheat at a level that has nothing to do with the way Republicans cheat. They don't do the same thing. Why don't they want you to have to show an ID? They make it a racist thing because they make everything a racist thing. But come on. We all have to show ID. You have to show ID to do everything in this country. You should have to show ID to vote. So now we find out more information from WikiLeaks and also from an FBI release that the State Department was trying to deal with the FBI to stop them from classifying information, emails that Hillary Clinton sent, so that it wouldn't look so bad. So the State Department, this is not Hillary Clinton, the State Department is trying to collude with the FBI. Here's from the Wall Street Journal. A State Department official in 2015 tried to keep the Federal Bureau of Investigation from marking a Hillary Clinton email as classified, according to documents that reveal the extent to which officials sought to reduce the number of messages judged to contain national secrets. The move by the State Department, which came after questions were raised about Mrs. Clinton's use of a private email server while she was Secretary of State, focused on a single email about the probe into the 2012 attacks on U.S. outposts in Benghazi, Libya. And at one point, there was discussion between these, should there be a quid pro quo? Can we get more permission? Will the State Department give more permission for more FBI agents to go to Iraq? And in return, the FBI won't classify these emails. I mean, and look, we already know that the White House coordinated, was part of her defense. We know that the White House, our White House that we pay for, the government that we pay for, was defending her as a candidate, which is not something we pay for. There are emails that show top Obama administration officials in close contact with Hillary Clinton just as her campaign was beginning, trying to prevent the fallout from these this revelation of the server. So we know this government has been corrupted for political purposes. I have to stop here to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube, which I wouldn't have to do if you just subscribe. Just subscribe and come over to the Daily Wire and watch the whole thing.